Hey everyone, welcome back. Happy Saturday. And for those of you that are mothers out there, since I won't be going live tomorrow, I want to say happy Mother's Day to you all. Feliz Dia de las Madres for the people that are my Spanish speaking audience as well. I just came back from an event celebrating Mother's Day, and it was today, this morning, but it was all Hispanic ladies. And so the whole event was in Spanish, and a little bit, they translated everything into Portuguese too, because we have a growing Brazilian population at our beautiful church as well. So that event was so amazing, but and powerful. So happy Mother's Day to all of you. So today we're going to be diving into South Carolina. As you know, South Carolina is in a critical leadership period right now. And we're looking at who is going to be our next governor and many different other offices as well. And so these past 2 weeks, I've been doing different events and going. Now, I don't want to say busy. I want to say I've been productive because I've enjoyed every single moment of the opportunities that the Lord has allowed me to have and the people that I've been able to connect with. And so it was just been awesome. So last week we had our mass outreach here at the fairgrounds in South Carolina. And since I'm a part of TPUSA Rise and the city chair of two cities in our state, I had to be there to represent, to meet key people, and just be there to talk to the people that were coming out. And so that event was awesome. We had in the mass outreach, we had a march, a Jesus march, and it was beautiful. It was powerful. That's what I can say. I could feel the Holy Spirit on that movement, on what God's doing here in South Carolina. And I don't care how it looks. I just want to be a part of what God's doing. So being a part of that mass outreach was incredible. And then the week prior to that, which is what we're going to be discussing today, we had the gubernatorial forum for our Republican candidates here in South Carolina are running for governor. Some of them are running for AG, congressmen, congresswomen, and it's just awesome to be part of that too. And so breaking all of this down with me to chat about this event is the actual organizer herself. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her in because she's amazing and she's going to give us a lot more insight. If you remember, she joined me on this podcast before. Her name is Paula Tisdale. She's a state executive committee woman here in South Carolina. She brought in some insight into the GOP establishment and why some candidates that's not a part of the establishment are being held down in terms of voters being visible before voters and getting their name out, and so voters can know about them and at least have the chance to even vote for them. So why that, there's an undermining of our system quietly. So she brought that to the forefront in her position, and we talked a lot about that. So if you missed that episode, you go check it out. But back again to talk about this gubernatorial forum and then some additional things we're going to talk about as well. I have her again, Paula Tisdale. So, Paula, thank you so much for being with me today. Welcome in.
Oh, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yes. So, I think while I'm talking about it now, let's go ahead and just circle through some of the images. I want you guys to see a little bit of what we experienced at this gubernatorial forum. And Paula, as the organizer who was able to put this together, number one, I am very inspired by you because you're somebody that holds a position where you could do something like this. And also where you have the ties, the connection, and then you went about and did it. So this an event was very well organized. It was very well done. Everything had its place. And I was really excited to be a part of that. And, for you running this, doing this event, um, I I just want you to share, how did it feel putting this together and being a part of that and just organizing it for the people that are running all from all different types of backgrounds? How was that for you?
Well, I kept my focus, um, was and still is. I wanted very much for we the people to get to hear all the candidates and not just to get to hear them, but to get to meet them. Shake hands with them, speak face to face to them. And, I had a lot of people ask me, why would you have this at a place like Good Eats in Cottageville? And that's a great question. And the answer is because that's where the real people spend time.
Mm,
And I thought it was really important that the candidates come to the people, not the people go to the candidates, because that's something we've already been doing that. And that's good too. But I thought it was so important to have the candidates actually come to the people and spend time with us where we spend time. So
I thought this was
that
awesome.
was my focus the whole time. I just really wanted to make that happen.
I think you did a great job, and I also love that in the midst of all of the stuff taking place, because as the organizer, you're in charge of so much, even the people that you put in charge, you still have to oversee that. Trust them, to when you delegate, but, you are still responsible, right? So,
Mhm.
I thought you did a great job. I loved your attitude throughout the whole thing, even though so much was happening, so many people were there. You had food there. The food was great too. It wasn't just like finger stuff. Like this was like you could have dinner. It was awesome. So one thing that really stood out to me though was how engaged the grassroots conservatives were too here at this event. There was like real energy in that room. What was your biggest takeaway from the event overall?
Um, well, I really, like I said, I just really wanted to get the candidates in front of the people and the people in front of the candidates. And I felt like that happened. Um,
Mhm.
I thought it really gave us an opportunity to see what the candidates were about. Not just when they were on the stage answering the questions, but what they were like when they were walking around, and little things that happened, like which candidates got there first and how they handled their teams
Yeah. Mm.
and how they handled, sharing tables. Um, I got to see, um, some of the teams really worked well together because obviously they're competing,
Yeah.
but they were able to work really well together and share a space. And it was nice to be able to see, how professional they were able to behave. Um, all the candidates themselves were able to get along really well because I know there is some, I could they're competing.
Yeah.
There's only going to be one governor.
It was
Um,
beautiful. I thought they acted with a lot of maturity, and
yeah, so
you
that
can
was
see that.
really great to see. And then also the feedback I was getting from the attendees, that a lot of them, generally with things like that, people come in and they've already kind of decided who their candidate is.
Yeah.
And a lot of people came in fairly open. They they said, I just really need to hear how they're going to answer questions and what they're really thinking. And some of the candidates, like Ralph Norman, for example, they weren't familiar enough with him. Um, Nancy Mace, um, people think they know who she is, but the feedback that I got from most people were, I kept hearing people say she surprised me
Wow.
in a very good way. Like they said, the subtext was, I was prepared to not like her. I didn't think I was going to like her, but they loved how candid she was. Um, and one of the biggest things I heard, they really liked her response to the COVID question and the
Mm.
vaccine question, because she said, "Yes, I chose to get the vaccine. I don't think anyone should be forced to get a vaccine, but I now have vaccine injuries
Oh,
that I'll probably be dealing with for the rest of my life." They liked how honest she was. She didn't make excuses. Um, and then people were, very impressed. I got very good feedback from their responses to Ralph Norman.
mhm.
Um, but most people had only heard, they were familiar with Pam Evitt, of course, because she's the lieutenant governor.
Yeah.
So the majority of the people, she was she was almost the only candidate that they really knew anything about, and or Alan Wilson, because he's the attorney general.
Mhm.
So and he's running a massive, his campaign, his commercials are everywhere. He's got a great campaign. So they had also heard of him for the most part. But Ralph Norman, they were like, you know what, I don't know. I don't really have an opinion. I need to hear him speak. And I heard only positive
Um,
responses.
I got to interview some of the candidates, which was awesome. So my very first ever Republican event that I went to,
Mhm.
and this is my very first political event I think I've ever went to, was the Republican dinner. That was, I believe, I think that was, I want to say it was early this year.
Mhm.
Um, and at that event, I was a part of the media team when you had the
Mhm.
media badge, and it was so cool. So I got to go, and I was at that event. I did like everything myself. So I did the camera and all that, which was fun, and I'm kind of used to. But what I wasn't used to with that event, which was I've seen. Let me start with this. I've seen the cabinet meetings with Donald Trump and the
Mhm.
press conferences, etc., and how these reporters or journalists will constantly like shout like crazy, like just to get a question, right?
Mhm.
So I've seen that, but actually being a part of it was another thing. So when my very
Mhm.
first event, I went as a media person to ask these candidates questions, and some of them were the same candidates that were at this forum. There was our local news station there. It was awesome. So it was a couple of podcasters were there too. So it wasn't just me. And so they were kind of assertive to get their questions, and
Yeah.
it felt almost like I was watching that. And so at your event, though, I had the incredible opportunity. I was the only media person, which was much easier. And if you could imagine being a media person now and it's your very first time ever interviewing candidates. And so I was there, I had my stuff ready, but I was like, how I thought that they would have it more organized. Like they'd be like, okay, we're gonna have this candidate come in and you're gonna have this amount of time to ask them a question, and then we move on to the next person. No, they just put us in a balcony area, which was beautiful, and you could still hear the noise from the inside though. So, that was a whole other thing. And then they were like, okay, y'all just go at it. And so so it was kind of like people were very assertive. So I'm looking and seeing how we're going to do this because I don't want to be rude or I'm learning. So
Mhm.
I've watched them go and they were a little assertive. So I was like, okay, so I just need to interject in a very respectful manner, and then I
Mhm.
can get my question asked and sit down with the candidate. So I was able to do that. But at your event, I was the only one there, and I was kind of grateful for that, to be honest, because I was able to easily grab the candidate, have my own area set up, get them to
Yeah.
an area where they were isolated and was less noise. And at this time, thanks to my producer, I now have a microphone that will cancel out the noise because as a beauty creator who sits here in my beauty room and make videos, like I don't really necessarily need a mic that can cancel noise. I just need,
Yeah.
maybe a mic if they ask me to go to a different location to apply a makeup product, if they want a different
Mhm.
background. But I don't need anything where I'm interviewing somebody else. So I got a new microphone and all that thanks to my collaborations with TikTok. They are awesome. So I was ready for this event, and then I had my own cameraman who was following me around, which made it much easier, and it came prepared. So with all that being said, I did have the opportunity to interview some of these candidates. They were all awesome, and they were ready. Now, I will say I didn't get to interview Ralph Norman. I think it was him and a few others, but that's okay. I did get to interview some of them, and I think some of this is posted to my social. So I'm going to show you guys one of the first videos that went kind of in the comment section. You guys were kind of not happy with this news, and I totally understand why. But this is Mark Lynch talking about Lindsey Graham, our current Congress, who's sitting in Congress right now, and he had some information that I think a lot of us did not know. And so I had to provide you guys with the actual evidence of what he said, because some of you in my comment section were like, where's this? Where can we find this? And if this is true, we gotta
Mhm.
he should be held accountable. And it's
Mhm.
true. I mean, there's an article out there. There's a lot of different information out there about exactly what he said in his video. So let's go ahead and roll that.
Lindsay's position on life is for murdering children in the womb up to 15 weeks. And then he voted on a bill to put our taxpayers' money into a blood pact with Satan in Obamacare and Medicaid to fund Planned Parenthood to allow a mother to murder her baby up until the moment before delivery in the ninth month in 9 states. How can you vote for that guy just with those two facts?
Okay, so that's my second one, but that's okay. That's another one too that a lot of people are commenting on about Lindsey Graham's stance from what he says and what he actually does. So, that is one of the candidates that's also running for his position. Then I did get a chance to interview Nancy May. She was very gracious, by the way, because the time I interviewed her, you, Paula, were speaking on stage and you were calling the candidates to come up, and she was like, I gotta go. We gotta, I want to give you this interview, but we gotta go quickly. So I had to on the fly kind of do this. And so let's take a look at this one. With Nancy Mace, who's running for governor of South Carolina, we have one question from you, the voter. You brand yourself as a fighter, but critics say some of the controversy around you can become a distraction. How do you reassure South Carolina voters that your leadership would be disciplined, focused, and effective?
What we heard last night with Donald Trump, the only people who are getting attacked and threatened are the ones who are the most impactful. I've been viciously attacked over and over again, particularly this week when I had to bury my father. It goes to show you how dirty politics is, but we were above the target. We're doing well. We're taking names. I'm going to continue to work hard and fight hard for people of South Carolina.
The vibe that Nancy Mace gave me was a very strong woman who has been through a lot and is I feel like she's definitely somebody who's ready to step into a role like governor, to be honest. Like when I was in her presence, she gave me this strong, confident woman. And you could see that, she's, I don't know. I could feel that she's been through a lot, and maybe I was discerning, her current loss, but she was still pushing through, very strong. And even the attacks that she was facing out, while burying her father as well. What are your thoughts on that?
I have to echo what was said to me. Um, I you have to. Scripture says to judge people by their fruit. You'll know them by their fruit.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give her an honest listen. I have never disliked her like some people have. I've never had negative feelings toward her, but I was not prepared for how impressed I was with her. I have been telling people, even leading up to the gubernatorial candidate forum, there were some people who said, "Why did you invite her?" Because she's polarizing. There are some people who are very strongly, don't want to listen to her, but it's because of the media bias and the things that they've been told. I don't think it's really her, but I have to agree with what you said, that she was very strong, very confident, very ready
Mm-hmm.
to step into position. She has taken a lot of fire, but she's taken it with grace. She had people fight her coming just to that gubernatorial candidate forum. People that did not want her to be there.
Yeah.
And I think I have to agree with what she said. I think when that happens, you're over the target. When you're getting fired at like that, especially when it's from what's supposed to be your own team, I think that we as voters need to begin to, I'm going to make a broader statement. When we see that, we need to begin to ask more leading questions. Why is this person coming under such severe attack?
Yes.
What is really going on here? Are we being manipulated by a particular narrative? Because we're in such a critical place that it doesn't make sense. I'm going to shift a little bit to Lindsey Graham in part of my answer.
Okay.
Use him as an example. Right now, he should be campaigning, telling South Carolina voters, what is he going to bring to the table? Why should we vote for him? He is not doing that. He's putting all of his energy toward criticizing Mark Lynch, and saying terrible things about him. But what are you doing? What is your platform? Your platform cannot be Mark Lynch is bad. We need to hear what you have to say. So I would say the same thing. The people that are just saying all these things about Nancy Mace, but what are you doing? And let her fruit speak for itself. What is she doing? And I do think, and I love that she admitted, she said, yes, I have made mistakes. I am not perfect, but
Mm-hmm.
I want to fight for South Carolina. I will fight for South Carolina. I
Yeah, I
like
can
that she
respect that.
wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yes, she's not trying to pretend to be something that she's not. She said, "I
Yeah.
have two speeds: stop and go." Um, and she also called herself Trump in heels.
I was going to mention that because when I met her, and that was my first time ever. I've seen her at different events, but that was my first time ever having a closer interaction with her.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never met Donald Trump. I've just watched him online and kind of looking at his character. I've read his book. I'm
Mm-hmm.
also currently reading his book from his son Under Siege, so just so I can understand his mindset more.
Mm-hmm.
So I've read The Art of the Deal through that one, but the other one his son wrote is the one that I'm currently reading, but
Mm-hmm.
she gave me those vibes of somebody like, when I feel like they created Donald Trump in a sense because, like, he came on the scene. He is who he is. There's a lot of people that say a lot of great things about him before he ever became a politician. Then once he
Mm-hmm.
became a politician, he faced massive attacks, right?
Right.
And then you see him become even more fierce because of that. I feel like when you have to undergo that much attack where it almost costs you your life, you
Right.
become a different person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like either you get clarity on your vision and why you're doing it, and you're sharp on that, and nobody can move you, or you quit. And if you don't quit, you just become stronger. And I felt that I could feel that sense from Nancy Mace. And I'm not hyping her up, guys. She's not my first candidate that I'm going to. She's not even the person I'm going to be voting for. She is my second option if the person I am voting for doesn't get elected. But I'm just saying, like, this is my experience, like meeting her, and just her
Yes.
vibes that she gives.
Yes.
She's approachable, but you better she's a type. She reminds me of no, not necessarily like Pat Patricia. I guess so, but it's kind of like you have to come correct when you come before her. Like
Uh-huh.
that's the vibe she gives me because I feel like she's been through a lot. She's used to this space and she knows. And so yeah,
I really liked. I knew a little bit about, I knew that she'd lost her father, but I didn't know everything that had happened. And I was actually glad that she shared that, because what I was hearing was, yes, we just went through this, but it has actually made me more determined to fight.
yeah,
That she was honest with what had happened to her dad. That it was a turbo cancer, that it was a from the vaccine, which
mhm, yeah,
I actually know someone who the same thing happened with, and he died a few months ago. So it helped me. It just helped fill in some gaps for me, and appreciate a little bit more the sharpness that she has, the
mm,
determination,
yeah,
um, because losing a parent, that really could have shut her down, but I think it made her rise up more. Like, I have to step up. It
yeah,
became more of a why for her. And I'm going to echo what you said. I'm not trying to hype her up either, but I do have to be honest and say that that is exactly what I saw.
yes,
Um, and I was uh, I was
impressed.
pleasantly surprised with her
Yeah,
and impressed. Yes, I was
yeah,
impressed.
me too.
Um, and so, and in fairness, I think we have to share that she has a presence about her. She
Yes.
really does. And I want to call it, when we go through things, it's either going to make us better or bitter, right?
Hmm.
And if we allow it to sharpen us, then the Lord will bring us into increase. And I think that that is happening with her. And what I will tell people is, don't sell her short, because I can definitely see that God has his hand on her and she has a part to play. That much I am sure of. Um, so I think we need to be watching her and praying for her.
Hmm. Yeah. So I think we have one more video I do want to show. This is with Dr. Sam McCone. I also got the chance to speak with him Wednesday. He called me after I emailed him, and he's going to be coming on the podcast too.
Oh, that's
So
exciting. Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited to have him on too. And then I also spoke to Congressman Ralph Norman. He's going to also be appearing on I think we have him scheduled for next week to come on. So I'll be chatting with him. He's really awesome. I like him. He's my choice, to be honest. But I want to interview as many as I can for everyone else to choose themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so this is Dr. Sam McCone. Let's go ahead and run that video.
As far as healthcare goes these days, I think of all the candidates in the race right now, I have more business and medical experience because I've worked in the hospital and I've also run businesses. And the American people have lost faith in the healthcare system. Obamacare has failed us. And we've got to get, I think some people think the solution is more government. I think the solution is less government. Dealing with regulations in healthcare is burdensome for doctors and for patients.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of Dr. Sam McCone. He'll be coming on. He's running for congressman. So it'll be exciting to have him. Comes from a different perspective, and I like that we got so many different people from different backgrounds running for these offices, and they're not just, like we talked about, a part of the establishment, which we'll get into chatting about. I do want to mention this before we move on, though, because I have some questions for you when it comes to, what we're seeing in the Republican race, and also when we go into talking about, so quote unquote the deep state, or the establishment.
Mm-hmm.
So I interviewed a couple of candidates, like I mentioned to you guys, and there was one that I want to mention, Pamela Evitt. So some of the candidates that I interviewed, I have no problem when they ask, like, what is the question that you want to ask. I have no problem with that, because number one, some of these candidates are fitting their own bill, and I think to give them, just to tell them what the question is, so they can have just a few seconds or a few moments to think about what the response is before we hit record, I think is definitely okay. So it's not like they have like a whole day to plan. So but so some of them asked for that, and I think that's totally okay. I have no problem with them just wanting to know what it is, and then go ahead and hit record, because usually we'll stand right in front of the camera. I tell them what the question is sometimes, and then we hit record, and they're ready to respond. But Pamela Evitt, her team was trying to get her to where I was to ask her a question. However, when I came up to them, I said, hey, I wanted to see if I can get Pamela Evitt to answer a few questions. If she doesn't have time for two, it's fine. Because I had one question, I had a follow-up. So they were like, yes, we're trying to get her over right now. But she was, interacting with the people, which I thought was beautiful. She was shaking hands with all the people there and talking with them one-on-one. She's very personable. She's a different character, you can see, from Nancy Mace and her. Not saying that Nancy Mace wouldn't do that, but I'm just saying, like, there's a strong presence you get in a different sense you get with Nancy Mace, like, than you get with Pamela. She's more soft or whatever, and that might be why people she might rub people the wrong ways, because I feel like she's very, very strong. Nancy Mace her character is very strong. So when she says that she's literally Trump in heels, like, that's literally her. Like, that's what I even got from being in her presence and asking her that question for just those few moments. So different, but I still think good. Now, so Pamela Evitt was going around shaking everybody's hand, meeting with all the people, regular folks that were there, and I thought that was cool. So when I came to ask them, can we get her over to my area where I'm recording everyone? Her team was like, yes, we could do that. Then a guy from her team came over to me and he said, what's the question you want to ask her? Would you mind sharing it with me? I said, sure, no problem. So this was the first question that I had. And I looked up controversies on each of the candidates so I could have strong questions. I didn't want to come with, flippy questions that were nice. I did have an option that was, both, controversy and then non. Okay. So, but I wanted to be fair on both ends. So when it comes to the perspective of the voter. So the question that I had for her was this. It said, critics have said some of your campaign messaging suggested endorsements that weren't officially there. For voters who care about truth and trust, can you clarify exactly who has endorsed you and how you make sure your campaign never misleads conservative voters? And when I read that to him, he was like, he kind of gave me this staunched face, like he was not, it was a sign of disapproval. And he was like, I don't understand why you want to ask her that question. Like, why does it matter who's endorsing her? Da, 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 da. And I said, okay. I was like, chill, kind of chill. It's like, because he was kind of, why you do that? I was like, okay, if you don't want, and this is exactly what I said, if you don't want to do that question, if you feel like you wouldn't want to do that one, that's totally fine. I have a follow-up, and I'll read to you the follow-up. So my follow-up was, beyond endorsements, what specific Trump-aligned policy would you implement first as governor? Okay, clear. he dismissed that one altogether again and goes back to the first one. And he goes, yeah, but I don't understand why you want to ask about endorsement. And I said, and I repeated it. We don't have to ask about the endorsement if it's that big of a deal. We can do the
Mhm.
second question.
Yeah.
So because he gave me those vibes, I was like, I'll wait for her to come to see it, but I feel I could sense that they're not going to prioritize it anymore. And so I just moved on to the next person and they didn't. So I thought that now that's not necessarily Pamela Evitt saying that. Hear me correctly, that was her team. But
Mhm.
my thought is also you probably prepared your team for certain controversies around you. So,
Mhm.
to dodge certain questions or whatever so that you won't have to face them. But I get that this is a question here, but if you don't have anything to hide, uh, I don't understand why you couldn't address it. It's already a controversy out there. Address it, right? So,
I definitely picked up on that. That was a sore spot.
okay,
Um, I I said when I was organizing it, because I was talking to all the teams, and I had made the comment to Pam Ebbitt's team that um, the other teams didn't like that she was saying she was endorsed by Trump,
yeah,
and I didn't
and
mean
Governor
it.
McMaster.
I didn't. I didn't mean it. It just is. But I noticed they were very defensive, and the other teams all kept saying, "Well, she's not endorsed by Trump." So it
She's
was just
not. She's not.
that was
Not officially.
a funny one of the funny things that I ran into. So I think I definitely was under the impression that they didn't want to touch that they
Mm.
just didn't want to talk about it
But you
because
saw, like,
this was a
even my
private
question
conversation.
with even my question with Nancy Mace kind of poked a little bit, especially given the fact that her father just passed. However, it is something that's out there already. So
Mhm.
it's not like I'm trying to do a gotcha. Like I'm okay letting them know the questions I have beforehand, but these are
Right.
questions from
Yeah.
voters. So,
Right.
you know, uh, and I respect Nancy Mace. I wouldn't want to do, and I don't know her necessarily like that, but I wouldn't, even somebody I don't know, I don't want to do anything to like necessarily hurt you, but these are already concerns, that are there.
Well,
And
that reminds me of a conversation I had with Alan Wilson. So when we
mm,
were done with the final questions and we were, they were almost ready to leave the stage. I said to him, I said, I just wanted you to know that I allowed the um, the COVID and the vaccine question because I wasn't doing you any favors not allowing that. It was one of the questions that was submitted, and I knew that they all really needed to answer it, but especially him and Nancy
yeah,
needed needed to answer that. It was a question that was hovering over a lot of people, and if it wasn't answered, then that's going to be a stumbling block. And I really appreciated his response. He said, well, then good. And he said, I hope that I answered it well for them. Like, completely answered, completely addressed it.
yeah,
And because it wasn't, like you said, it was the intention for me. I didn't allow it to be a gotcha. I allowed it because I knew that there were people that were coming that have lost loved ones because of either COVID itself or because of the vaccine.
yeah,
And that is it's a big question for a lot of people, and you can't ignore it. You have to answer it. And I think questions that um, voters are going to have, we're not doing the candidates any favors by avoiding those questions,
yes,
because if people don't have the answer, then that leaves it in their mind. If you don't want to answer the question, then that makes me think the answer must be something you have something to hide.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, Alan Wilson has a lot of controversy around him in terms of, his position as AG.
Hmm.
But when you hear him talk and you hear his stance on different policies, he's very, very strong.
Hmm.
You can tell he's been doing this for a little minute because he can think on his foot. He's really, really good at um,
Yes.
you know, he's good. Like
He is. He's a very good speaker.
yes.
He's very charming. You're right. He's very quick on his feet, and he's able to roll with the punches really, really well.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I will say something else, and I've told him this. Um, he has a fantastic campaign team,
Mm.
um, which is another strength of his. Um, I'm gonna have to give Ralph Norman a big shout out though too, because
Oh, yes, he's
I loved working with his team. I loved working with him. Um, so personable, so down to earth, so accessible. Um,
I experienced that personally.
well, the genesis of this whole event, Ralph Norman had reached out to me personally. When he called me personally, um, saying that he really wanted to come speak to Colleton. He wanted to come speak to my group. And I was, kind of rolling over in my mind, okay, what's that going to look like? And then Alan Wilson, before I had a chance to follow up with Ralph Norman, Alan Wilson called me and said, I really want to come speak to Colleton. I really, want to come speak to your group. And I told him, I said, well, I tell you what, I said, this is just my suggestion. I think you definitely want to get in front of our regular GOP group and speak at one of the breakfasts. That's a great thing for you to do. I said, but if you want to speak to the grassroots and get outside of that and talk to the conservative voters, they're going to vote in this primary. They're going to vote in the general, but they don't participate with the party per se.
Mm.
I can put you in front of those people. And he said 100%. He told his team to make me a priority. So I called Ralph Norman back and I said, I think we need to do a gubernatorial candidate forum. And, it started out, it was just going to be the two of them. And Ralph Norman said, have you reached out to Nancy? And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I won't be able to get Nancy. I actually have a friend that works for her. But I was just thinking realistically in terms of how busy she is.
Yeah.
And I thought, I have to ask, I need to try. So I actually reached out to more than one of her staffers and just asked, do you think she'd want to do this? What does her availability look like? And they said 100% they knew she would want to do it, but it was figuring out availability. And then somebody said, have you reached out to Pam Abbott? And I'm thinking, oh, I'll never get Pam Abbott. She's the lieutenant governor. Well, I reached out to her and, it was coming together. And she said, oh, well, I can't say no. If you're having a forum, then I absolutely want to come back to Colleton. And they made it a priority, and it all came together. I actually reached out to Ron Reddy as well. He wanted to come, and it just would not work on his schedule. And
Okay.
and he asked me. He said, please have another event so I can come because I really want to speak to people in Colleton. So it was just what was really amazing to me is that the candidates really wanted to make Colleton a priority because Colleton has, our nickname is the Corridor of Shame, which we're working on losing that nickname. We've been saying no, we're going to be the Corridor of Fame.
That's awesome.
we want a new name, but we felt forgotten and less than. Like the candidates are not going to care about Colleton County because we're so rural and we're considered a poorer county, and when it actually should be the opposite. We have a great amount of need in our county, and what I saw was all of the candidates saying we love Colleton County and we specifically want to come speak to the people there. So that was just so good. I thought that was so good. That made me really happy.
I have this, I want to ask you another question, before we dive into what I'm seeing with the Republican Party, because I want to get your insight on things. But if someone wanted to do a gubernatorial forum in their own city or state with these different candidates that are running for different offices, governor, etc., what would be your advice to someone who, let's say, is a grassroots person, like, you know, someone that may not have the position that you have, but wants to get involved and put something together where they could hear the candidates? What would you suggest?
Well, my answer might surprise you. First of all, my position did not help me. If anything, it hindered me.
Oh, wow.
The reason I had the connections with the candidates is because I show up, because I go to events and I talk to people, and I've been doing that for a while now. So I have a lot of connections. Um, I've built, a network of even friends. Just connecting with people, just being there. So that helped me a lot. But to answer your question, we have to have grassroots movement. Um, Everything cannot come directly through either party.
Mm.
It's got to be a movement of we the people, and we have First Amendment rights. So anyone can organize an event, anybody. And you just go to the different candidates' websites, and there's always a contact landing page. Like you can go in and just introduce yourself and say, I'm with this group, and I would really like for you to come speak. Um, they're trying to win a race. So they want to get in front of as many people as possible. What I learned in a gubernatorial candidate forum, it is a little more involved because I had to call the sheriff's department. I had to make sure that we had insurance. Um, there were a lot more moving parts than it would have been, for um, just having one or two other candidates come because they were high profile people.
Mm.
Um, we did have quite a few security personnel that were in the building. Um, and I had to work with all of them and organize that as well. So there were more moving parts, but really anyone can do it and should, because it helps these different candidates. We also had David Pasco come, for example, and
Yes.
he is running for Alan Wilson's position. He's running for Attorney General,
Mm-hmm.
which is a critical. I have to stress, we don't realize what a critical position that is. But candidates like him, um, they need to get in front of as many people as humanly possible. So the more people that reach out to them and say, "Hey, I want to do a meet and greet." Mark Lynch is another great example. He did, particularly at the beginning, he was doing a lot of, like, people were just hosting meeting groups in their house and just sending it out to their church, their friends, their family, their neighborhood. Hey, Mark Lynch is running for Senate, and would love for you to come over to my house. And if 30 people came over, they were like, wow, this is amazing. And he just kept doing that. And look at the momentum that he's built
Yeah.
with just doing home meet and greets. So really anybody can and they should. Um, I would love to see. I, I know this has become controversial, but quite frankly, it really shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. But we need to begin to see churches lean into this.
Oh, I'm gonna ask you a question on that.
Yeah, I mean, I I
Related to
I
that.
dream of a day when churches will not be afraid to do that, because you mentioned the issue of abortion. Um, it should be a no-brainer that God wants us to protect children, especially children in the womb. So how can God's people be disconnected from that? How can that not be part of our mandate. We are to occupy until he comes. And I have a lot of different translations of Bibles in my house, and
Same.
none of them say occupy means stay huddled up in your church and only spend time, with fellow believers. A light has to go out into the darkness
Yeah.
and pierce it. And the reason we're seeing all these evil things in our government, the reason we see that abortion not only started, but it is trying to move forward. Um, I don't know how many people are aware. Anybody can walk into Walmart right now and buy. Ella is the name of one. It's a morning after pill. There's Plan B. There's very early abortion pills
Wow.
that are readily available without prescription, without parental knowledge or consent, that anyone can buy in any drugstore, in Walmart, pharmacy, anywhere that sells, that has a pharmacy. These things are available. So how can the church not step up and be involved? And yet we are so afraid. And I'm going to use the word fear. It's a fear of man. Can I call it that? Can I be honest, Iesha?
Yeah.
It's a fear of man. My fear of God is much stronger. I keep thinking about what Bonhoeffer said. When people asked him, why are you stepping up and being so loud against Hitler? You're going to get yourself in trouble. And he would say, I'm more afraid about what God will say if I don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've been praying for us to do that as God's people.
Yeah.
I don't know if I said this when I was interviewed before, but I heard somebody say every abortion clinic should have a sign in front of it that says, here by the permission of the local church. And it's true. Why? Because anything that happens here on earth is allowed by God's people, because we are his ecclesia in the earth. We are his governing body. So if we say no to something, if we stand against it, God's not going to allow it.
Mm.
But if we stand down and let the enemy have free reign and let him take over, that's why the mountain of government's become so dark, because so few believers have been willing to step into it. And I'll hear people say, well, I don't want to have to mess with that. I don't want to have to deal with all that. It's really terrible. Well, that's just politics.
Yeah.
I'm not political. I've heard people say these things. It's terrible because we haven't been stepping into it.
Yeah.
If the more God's people step up into the mountain of government. Oh, and food for thought on that. I just want to challenge people to rethink their attitude about it. That is a whole mountain that needs to be evangelized. Do you realize there's lost people on that mountain? They don't know they're lost. And if we don't go to them, we're standing over in a corner going, Lord, we're waiting for them to come to us. I don't know why they didn't come over here. I've been standing here waiting. And that's not what Jesus did. He went to the people, and he tells us to go out into the highways and byways. Sure, when you go into the highways and byways, you can invite people to come back with you to your local church, but you have to go there. You have to go, and we have to be the light. We have to leave the flashlight. We have to take that light out. We have to be the salt, leaving the salt shaker and seasoning everything around us. So
I think that also you said that this is a mountain of people that are lost. Like this is a mountain of people that are lost who have the ability to make policy. I think that's the
your children, my children, and my grandchildren right now.
Yeah.
And so how can we not be involved with that? How can we not step up? And again, I challenge myself every day to think about, Bonhoeffer said some pretty amazing things.
Mm-hmm.
And just thinking about, we need to challenge ourselves and be more afraid about what is God going to say if we don't.
Yeah.
Because silence in the face of evil is itself
Yeah.
evil. To not speak is to speak. To not act is to act. God will not hold us guiltless. We have to stop deceiving ourselves into thinking that just going to our local church and praying is enough. Yes, pray. Yes, yes, go to church. But go there to be strengthened, to mobilize, and then go out and make a difference. It's throughout Scripture, throughout Old and New Testament, that God's people went out and made a difference.
Well,
That's
that
what happened.
so that brings me to my next question about the candidates that are currently running for different offices in our state, because a lot of them, or some of the ones that I interviewed at least, they have a Christian background. I think
Mhm.
you baptized one of them. Am I correct? You and
It's actually, we did an event. This was early in his campaign. His team, and I actually love that he did this. His team actually reached out to us because they saw that they had seen our presence online, and they saw that we were a grassroots organization, my We Impact the Nation group. And they reached out to us and they said, that's exactly who we want to speak to. So we had him come and we did a home meet and greet. I want to say we had like 50 people show up, which was, a great home event.
yeah,
Might have even been 60. It was a nice turnout.
that's pretty good. Yeah.
And when we were, we asked him a lot of questions. Well, then we were wrapping up. I really felt prompted by the Lord to ask him if he had been baptized in the Holy Spirit, and he said no. And I said, well, do you want to be? And my group is looking at me like, Paula, what are you doing? But anyway, he said yes, and I said, well, can we pray? Well, started out asking him if we could just pray for him, and he said yes to both, and we prayed over him and his wife. He got baptized in the Holy Spirit. He launched his campaign with an unapologetically pro-life launch. Like, he said, I want to see the baby in the womb. That the womb needs to be the safest place again.
Wow.
And he just went at it like right out the gate. Well, what's the number one issue that politicians shy away from? That issue.
Yeah.
They avoid it. They sugarcoat it. They try to dance a little side dance because they're thinking, well, I don't want to lose. It's a polarizing issue, and they're afraid they're going to lose, however many voters.
Yeah.
And he hasn't come at it that way. He has been, no, people need to be re-educated so they understand what's really happening.
And isn't he funding his own campaign?
He is. He's a very successful businessman. And also, I want to make sure, because I know that Lindsey Graham is saying that Mark Lynch wants to legalize cocaine. So I want to make sure people understand that the best analogy I can give you with Mark Lynch is he's like a Mike Lindell. So if you know My Pillow, Mike Lindell, his story, that he was a cocaine addict and God rescued him literally off the streets. And he used his success with My Pillow to start. I can't remember the name of he's got website.
The Lindell Recovery Network.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's what he puts his money into. Well, that's exactly what Mark Lynch does as well. And he won't tell you this, but because he's a very humble man, but I don't mind telling you, he will actually get people off the street. And you know how Jesus would say, do you want to be made well? Which you would think everybody would say yes, but not everybody wants to be well. You have to really, because it's a process, and it's a lot of effort and work and sacrifice. particularly to get off, I'm not a former drug addict, but I know enough that I know it's a hard thing.
Yeah, I've
Um,
seen that too. My husband did a homeless ministry. He was the one that got all of the homeless out of from under our bridge downtown. He got our city, our
oh,
mayor
wow.
involved. Yeah.
I love John, by the way. I love him. But he's wonderful. But that's the type of thing that Mark Lynch has done. Like, he will get people off the street, and then he'll tell them, look, I'm not getting you off the street just to give you a bed and some food. I'm giving you an opportunity. I'm giving you a hand up, not a handout. And if you really want to be well, I'm going to help you walk through this. And when you're able, I'm going to give you a job. But I don't want to just give you a job. I want to give you the ability to move up and actually have a career. So the people that run his business, a lot of them are those people that are
Wow.
former addicts. He has the 10 Commandments up on his wall in his store. They have Bible studies with the people that work there. They have Bible studies, in-house Bible studies together. They pray together every morning when they're opening the store. That's who he is.
Hmm.
He's not a perfect man because he's a man, but he's running because he felt very strongly led by the Lord that South Carolina needs a new day.
Yeah.
And I do want to, you haven't asked me, but I'm going to answer a question that I think needs to be answered. Why would Trump, because Trump is still endorsing Lindsey Graham, and that's going to hang up for a lot of people.
Yeah.
My answer to that is, I love Trump, voted for him all 3 times. Don't regret voting for him. I support him. I support his, what he stands for. That does not mean he's perfect, and that does not mean that he understands everything that's going on in the state South Carolina. He's never lived here, and I think he must have some bad intel, at least in regard to our state right now.
Yeah.
In regard to Lindsey Graham and Mark Lynch, because for whatever reason, and I think what the Lord is saying to us is, it's time that we can't follow a man. We can't just keep our head down and say whatever Trump says go, and mindlessly just keep going.
Now you've already hit on 2 of my questions because I want to move down because we got a little bit of time. But
Okay.
I was going to ask you about what are we seeing for Christians in terms of like how should we be engaged? You already kind of hit on that, and my other thing was, the Republican Party 10 years ago is not the same Republican Party that we see today, and we see a bunch of changes where you see a lot of these candidates and millionaires, that are running in our state, for example. I think is something of a like a chain reaction of what we see taking place all over, where you see people just rising up from different backgrounds and coming into these offices who've never been politicians before, but they see a need and they have the means to do it, and they're stepping up.
Yes.
But you've kind of already hit into that, like what's taking place in the Republican Party in terms of, a little bit of the establishment. Unless if you want to, hit on a little bit on that before we move on to the next thing.
Well, I do want to make a point that we're going to have to be savvier voters than we have been in the past.
Yeah.
People really need to do their due diligence, do some homework. Don't just listen to what you're hearing or think you're hearing. Don't just vote for somebody because, and that's what I was trying to say about Donald Trump. Don't just, I'm going to blindly vote for whoever Donald Trump says. I'm going to just whatever so and so says.
Yeah.
We need to find out, what are these people about. Find out more about Alan Wilson. Find out more about.
Yes, I've done my due diligence.
Yeah.
Personally, and I'm not afraid to say, I've never been afraid to say who I'm voting for, no matter where I am. But I will be voting for Ralph Norman. He solidified my vote at the gubernatorial forum when he spoke, because I've seen him speak and he's been very consistent. When I look him up online and try to find any controversy on this man, other than the fact that you can quote unquote say that he's been there for a while, so he's maybe part of the establishment, but none of his actions prove that he's a part of the establishment. Yes, he's had that position for, you know, some time, but just because you're in that position for some time doesn't mean you have succumbed to the mindset and the ideas of the establishment. So, but he's been very consistent across the board. So he has my vote. And like I said, if he's not elected, which I hope he is, then I would definitely choose Nancy Mace after that. After looking at every single candidate's different criticism, what they have done in their position, and then also what they're currently saying, I think that's what I will be going with.
I would just really like to see more Christians get involved. I would like to see um, more participation with the primary, because I can't stress enough that how critical primaries are in the state of South Carolina.
Yeah.
People are moving. I think I told you this last time. We are the #1 state that people are moving to from other states. I mean, even from Tennessee, North Carolina, not just the obvious New York and California.
Well, I keep
We are
hearing
the
Florida.
and Florida too. That's right. So that's very telling. They're moving here because we are supposed to be such a red state, and we have to stop taking for granted we are a super majority. We in that way we're red, but in practice, in voting record, a lot of what is happening is not conservative.
Yeah.
And so just because somebody runs on the Republican ticket doesn't mean that that's who we want. If my friend Bob always says, if someone is after title and position, they can be bought. If someone has whatever measure of fear of man is there, they're not going to be able to stand when the going gets tough and they have to take a hard stand on an issue.
Yeah.
They're not going to be able to do it because the special interest groups right now have way too much power and control in the state of South Carolina. So we have to get the right people in that are going to actually listen to we the people, and then we the people have to be speaking into it. If we continue to sit back and let the special interest groups speak for us, then that's what's going to continue to happen. The primary is absolutely critical. So the two dates I want people to remember: June 9th, and then there's most likely going to be a runoff, and that'll be June 23rd. So we have to show up. Instead of, I want to say that people don't realize it in the state of South Carolina, but we have a little bit of a victim mentality. And the reason I say that is when I go around and talk to people, they're just like, well, it's just how it is, and I can't help it. And we just, there's just always bad people to vote for. Like there's nobody good to vote for. Well, were you part of the process? Did you go to candidate forums? Did you meet people? Maybe you need to run for something. We should be running. I told you this in the last interview. We need to be running for school board and county council and city council. All these positions are critical, and we need to. Something I didn't make a big deal about that I really need to. Both parties are structured the same, Republican and Democrat parties. Okay. And so in order to become part of your local party, we have something called reorg every 2 years in county convention. So you have to show up at reorg. And it's something that should be publicized. It should be, you should see it everywhere, but you don't. And so you have to put forth the effort to find out.
Yes, and that's, I think, is a barrier for a lot of people, is that I feel like in South Carolina we don't make it easy for people to know what's going on.
Well, that's something that needs to change, but it's going to change by us pushing through it. Like right now, we're going to have to push through, and and show up. It's always the end of March, and then 2 weeks later, the beginning of April. So it'll be a year from now. There will be reorg in every county, and then county convention. We have to show up for reorg to participate in county convention. At county convention is where you vote in your county chair, your county state executive committee person, the role that I fill, um, your vice chair, and then all of your state delegates. Well, why is that important? Because the state delegates are the ones that go to Columbia and vote for the state chair. So a lot of these things that we're seeing that we don't like, that we want to change, how we change it. Trump had it right when he said it's got to be too big to rig.
Yeah. Like that.
And that at county level, that's what we've got to start doing. It's got to be too big to rig. There's got to be so many of us showing up, so many of us saying we want things done fairly. We want to participate. We want our voices to be heard. And for the people who are listening, or maybe will listen to this later and they think, I don't have time. It's literally once every 2 years, you go to a couple of meetings to help get the right people voted in. Why is that important? Because those people help steer the ship to get the right people on all these different ballots. They're the ones that, that candidates go through a screening process with their county. And those candidates get either promoted or not. So it's very important. They're also the ones helping to select and promote who's going to be on your school board.
Well, we got to work together, Paula, and make more people, make our city, our different cities around South Carolina more aware of this stuff.
Yeah, we do, and that's why I'm so excited that you have this podcast. And last thing I want to say, and I don't know if you've been hearing this. Now that you have a political podcast, maybe you've been hearing it too. But one of the things people say to me on a regular basis, I'm not political like you.
Yeah.
And what they don't understand, I know what they mean when they say that. But really, politics are in everything. Every church has politics in it, because you have to have government. Everything has to be done decently and in order, right?
Yes.
So really, that's not a true statement. They just don't understand. And it kind of breaks my heart a little bit, because people died so that we could have these freedoms, and we've been giving them up incrementally because we don't want to be inconvenienced. That's the truth. And I'm realizing more and more, if you were to ask me the number one thing Christians need to do, we've got to repent of that. We need to ask the Lord to forgive us that we've been complacent.
I want to take just a moment here to talk about my Iesha Speaks Truth Club. So if these are conversations that you are interested in, and you want to go deeper, conversations about politics, culture, faith, or global events, what's actually happening behind headlines, I want to invite you to join Iesha Speaks Truth Club. Our next subscriber live is going to be this coming Wednesday, which is May 13th from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be joined by Iranian expert Inez Cyrus, who's also known as Annie Cyrus. We'll be discussing Iran, radical ideologies, global instability, and how these issues connect directly to what's happening here in America. These are real conversations with real analysis, no surface level headlines, and you'll have the ability to also ask any questions that you'd like within that group. We'll be meeting via Zoom, so it'll be a private group. So you can join through that Facebook subscription. You should see it in the comment section, depending on where you're watching from. If you're on Facebook, you should see it in the comment section. And if you're on other platforms, and I invite you to come to the Facebook so you can subscribe and be a part of that and get more information. And I love to hear from you and have you a part of that community if you want to go deeper in these conversations. Now, we do have to wrap up, but I want to get to, I guess, one more question. This kind of takes us a little bit to a different direction, but we're still on the topic of what we're seeing happening in our nation in terms of we're going to go a little bit deeper into not having, the Christian values, and we're allowing things like Marxism or even Islam to kind of appear more, because those seem to be the two that are partnering together right now on the left. So one thing I want to discuss is the political climate right now in our country. So we've seen an assassination attempt on President Trump, increasing hostility in political rhetoric, riots over the past several years, etc. So recently came across this comment from Sebastian Gorka discussing political extremism, Antifa, and what he described as ideological radicalization, both domestically and globally. And regardless of where someone falls politically, I think most Americans would agree that political violence should never be normalized. But do you think Americans are becoming more concerned about extremism and political hostility? Do you think that how can we stay politically engaged and passionate without crossing into hatred or destruction?
I think that it's super important that we step back from these things and see them for what they are. History has some great lessons to teach us. If you look at Germany, um, the climate in Germany, they were a very Christian nation when Hitler took power, which is kind of hard to believe, but they were. Most people were believers. They were good, honest, hardworking people. But a lot of polarization was created, a lot of division was created because the saying divide and conquer is very true. So if you step back from that and look at it and look at it honestly, there are forces at work in our nation that are trying to prevent healing. They want to keep reopening old wounds. They want to, you know, create strengthen that polarization of dividing lines. One of the things that I keep hearing said in Republican camps is Democrats are the enemy. Well, that's not true. Democrats are not the enemy. They're people. They may be deceived. Um, they may be very lost, but we can't think that way. It's that kind of thinking that caused somebody, more than one person now, to take such a step to try to kill our president. And yet God in his mercy keeps protecting him.
Yes.
Because that would not be a good thing for our nation. It's never, when it's happened, in the past, it's never been a good thing. Regardless of, where people stand in their opinion of Trump. So we have to begin to recognize what the real enemy is. The enemy is the enemy, not people. And it is a battle of good and evil, not Republican and Democrat. There are a lot of things within the Republican camp that need healing. We need to get out of our echo chambers. Because even in the Republican camp, we can fall in that trap of I only want to speak to people that agree with me, and I agree with them, and we're not having conversations with each other anymore, and that just widens the gaps, and it's not been healthy for us. That's what I was saying about Christians wanting to. I mean, I'm not. The reason I'm familiar with it is I've personally done it, where you go between your house and your church, and you only see your church family. Which, don't get me wrong, I love doing that because I love my church family, but but we can fall in those traps where we're only talking to each other, and we're not taking the light out, like I said before, and we're not being challenged in our own belief systems. I'm going to use this as an example, but I was listening to Dutch Sheets, I want to say last week. He was sharing part of his own testimony. His father was a pastor, and when he was a teenager, they bought a house, and they dedicated their house to the church because they were working for the church. But they gave the house to the church. They signed over the deed. Well, the father was caught in an affair, and so the church kicked the whole family out. But the wife and the children didn't know. They didn't know why they were being kicked out. They were being kicked out. And the people that did that at the time thought that was a righteous thing for them to do, because they weren't, allowing this pastor to live that way, which of course they needed to address it, and he shouldn't have been allowed to do that. But when we're in an echo chamber, we're only around people who are going to say, yeah, that was great. That's what you need to do. And we may find ourselves being the one trying to stone the woman caught in adultery. When Jesus is saying, he who is without sin can throw the first stone. Yeah. We have to, iron sharpens iron, and we have to be willing to allow ourselves to be sharpened. We have to, I'm going to use Facebook as an example in case anybody's not tracking with what I'm saying. Facebook has algorithms, and you can stay with just your little group of like-minded people, and then nobody else ever sees. I had a hard time promoting the gubernatorial candidate forum on Facebook for that reason, when it was a nonpartisan event. So I wanted to get it out to everybody. I would have absolutely loved it if we had any Democrats come, or independents, because a lot of those people are going to vote. And I know this because I work the polls. Most people vote in South Carolina for a Republican governor, even if they don't for anything else. So, we need to, the phrase that's popping into my mind is, we have to be smarter than your average bear. We need to start paying more attention to everything that's going on. We need to listen to people, be like Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk would put his microphone down, and he would be very quiet, and he would listen. And if you've seen any of the videos, you know that sometimes people were saying crazy stuff to him. But what he was hearing was, this person is lost and hurting, and he had compassion. But then he would always respond with truth. He never backed down.
Yeah.
He always spoke the truth, and he was very strong, but with compassion at the same time. We've got to start thinking and acting that way, and reaching across the aisle. Because when we don't, the division is just getting greater. When I hear people, a wound that people keep bringing up and trying to reopen, blacks and whites, slavery. And I would say, well, look at Tennessee, because Tennessee just voted, they just passed the redistricting, which will allow a black woman, she is running, I can't remember if it's a Senate seat, but she is running. She's most likely going to win. She's a Republican. She's very conservative. But who was fighting her? Democrats were fighting her. And they were saying that she was, they actually dressed up like Ku Klux Klan members to protest her.
Wow.
So when we step back from things, it's like, it doesn't make sense. If you look at it honestly, you begin to see it for what it is. So instead of getting upset about something that God's already dealt with and is healed, and don't let that wound be reopened. Then we should be concerned with abortion that's taking place now, and the fact that Black babies are the number one victim in Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
We should be concerned about that. That's happening.
That's wild.
We should be concerned about human trafficking, which is a global problem and a huge problem here in America. that's the act of slavery that's happening today. So we need to begin to look at things more honestly. Instead of getting caught up in emotion and feelings, we need to find out the facts about what's going on.
Well, I think on that note, let me close us in prayer, and then we'll close out for this podcast episode. But God, I just thank you right now for our nation, and thank you so much for Paula, Lord. I just ask that you would bless her, Father, keep her going. I ask for more doors to be open over her, that she would realize every assignment that you have given her, and she'd step into those things boldly and actually protect her life, Lord. And I thank you for this great nation that we have, Father. I thank you that you've broken so many barriers at the cross, Lord. And I just declare that the church will mobilize in that we would walk in the identity that we are children of God, that we are not orphans. And I ask, Lord, right now for South Carolina, that the right candidate that will put you first, the candidate that will have your word and its policies throughout its choices will be selected for that position for the next 8 years. And I thank you, Lord, for Tennessee and all the states in this great nation, Lord. I just pray, Father, that we could be a nation of unity, Father. I just declare unity over us. I declare that we be one nation under God, Father, and that those that don't know you would have eyes to see. I pray you would encounter them where they are. I pray you would change the hearts of men, that they would know you, that they would love you, Father. And I pray for the church, that we would be mobilized, that we would go out like your word tells us to, that we would make disciples of all nations, that we'd baptize them, that we would teach them, Lord, and that will not be hindered, Father, by just the comfort of being in the four walls and having our families doing well. But we would see the need outside of ours, and we would reach, Father, and fulfill the Great Commission in Jesus' name. Amen.
Jesus.
Paula, I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and I do appreciate your insight and your willingness to engage at the grassroots levels with everyday Americans and have these types of conversations. So I want to thank you for that. And if you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to like, share, subscribe as well. If you haven't hit that follow button, I invite you to do that too, so you can you can be with me in the next live that we have, which will be next Saturday, 2 to 3 p.m. ET. And again, if you haven't subscribed already to Iesha Speaks Truth Club, we have our next meeting on May 13th, which is this coming Wednesday. If you subscribe now, you can join and be a part of that, and I welcome you in. So stay informed, stay prayed up, stay engaged, and never be afraid to speak truth. And I will